Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today Great.com talks with Diana Goodrich, co director at the Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest. If you haven't heard of it yet, its mission is to provide lifetime quality care for chimpanzees who have been retired from biomedical research, the entertainment industry, or private ownership. Before we begin, remember if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Hi, Diana, and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
It's a huge pleasure to talk to you today. I gotta say that I'm a big fan of chimpanzees. I don't know super much about it, but I've always had a good feeling about them. I don't know, and it's super like heartwarming, I would say, to know that there is a place such as this sanctuary that receives these animals that are, that have somewhat contributed. I don't know, even with the ethical things behind it, but they have contributed to the development of civilization in a way, especially in the biomedical field. But, they all need a better place to stay, right, after doing all of this. So I would very much like to know more about how did you begin working with this? What's your story?
Sure. Yeah. So I went to graduate school in the late 90s. I had always had kind of a fascination in great apes, non-human great apes, so gorillas and chimpanzees in particular, and had done a project when I was in an undergrad about apes who had been taught the science of language. And then I found myself living in Portland, Oregon, and realized that Washoe, the chimpanzee, was living about 5 hours from where I was. And she had been a chimpanzee who had been taught the signs of American Sign Language. So I had known about her and I thought, oh, this is my opportunity. So I applied to the graduate program there and I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into. I was a psych major actually and working with kids at the time. But I got into the program and it was under experimental psychology at the time. It's kind of expanded since then and it's a primatology program. Actually, I should probably promote it because it's the only primatology program in the US that you can get advanced degree in or undergraduate degree in primatology. It's really cool. So people come from all over the place, even outside the country, to go to the program. So yeah, I started working with chimps then and that's kind of how I got my start. I ended up going to a sanctuary in Canada that was the first sanctuary to rescue chimps that had been used in HIV research. That was outside of Montreal. And then I knew of Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest and how it was starting up. And we decided to kind of join up with them when they were accepting their first group of chimps.
That's an amazing story. And thank you for promoting that course. I think maybe some of our viewers will be very interested in this.
Yeah, if they want to look it up, it's Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington.
Nice. We'll make sure to add some information about this on our on our article later. Now, one thing that I'm very curious to know is what is the daily routine like for the chimpanzees at the sanctuary?
Yeah, so every sanctuary is a little bit different. Ours, we do 3 meals a day plus, other snacks in between. Chimpanzees are really interested in food, so that's kind of the highlight of their day usually. We often have parties for like every birthday and every possible celebration you can think of. So, like for example, yesterday was Valentine's Day, so they had a party for that, and so. We try to structure the day on the human 8-hour day, although I'd love to extend that a little bit for them. Yeah, so when the staff come in, they prepare breakfast for them, which is mostly fruit, which is the most exciting meal of the day. They get smoothies in cups that they drink out of. We are super safety conscious, so chimps are really, really strong and very smart, and that combination makes them dangerous. So we never share the same space as the chimps. So they live together as a group, 2 different groups at our sanctuary, and we actually don't, we're just really safety conscious. So we don't put our fingers in the cage or anything like that. We still have really close relationships with them. but they get all their kind of direct contact with each other. So after breakfast, we spend the morning cleaning. Chimps are pretty messy. And we have a lot of indoor space here because we are kind of north in the United States, so it gets cold here. So chimps need a lot of indoor space, in the wild. They're in equatorial Africa, so this climate is not exactly designed for them. Although they all spent years and years and were brought up indoors, so that's kind of what they're accustomed to. We do have really large outdoor habitats for them, which they have access to, not overnight, but as much as possible during the day. They do perimeter walks around the outdoor habitats like chimps do in the wild, just kind of checking out their territory. And once we're done cleaning a space, we usually put out some kind of food forage. So we spread food out all over the place, and that mimics what chimps do in the wild, which is just searching for food, gathering food, eating food. That's kind of their life in the wild. And then we put out enrichment. So there's lots of different forms of enrichment. We often do food puzzles because that's really motivating for them, and it stimulates them mentally, which is really important. I think probably the most challenging aspect of caring for chimps is just keeping them active and not bored. And then we do lunch, and generally the afternoons, they're kind of busy with themselves, like quiet time and grooming each other, exploring the outdoor habitats. And then we'll do dinner, and then they make nests at night. So we make sure they have lots and lots of nesting material, blankets, sometimes other types of materials, paper they really like to nest with. And in the wild, they would be up in the trees nesting. So they tend to be kind of up high in the indoor areas. So we've provided them with a lot of vertical space inside because that's what they feel most comfortable with. And then it's kind of lights out and on to the next day. And every day is very different with chimps. You just never know what's going to happen.
Well, I can imagine. But I gotta say that I got a lot of new and interesting information from what you just told us. Especially this, it's a point that I could not imagine, even though it's pretty obvious. Because when I think of a sanctuary, first I keep thinking of a lot of open space, just natural habitat. But then, yes, we are talking about animals that have been caged or kept indoors for most of their lives. So it should be the other way around, like in a more home-like style. It's not as if they had just come from the jungle to a sanctuary, which is a shame. And that brings me a question that is, what is the situation that, or I don't want to use the word condition, but I think that might help us to understand what I want to ask. How is the condition that these chimpanzees get to you, arrive to the sanctuary? What is the usual challenges that you face when welcoming them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So we are a pretty small sanctuary compared to others in the States. There are sanctuaries that have hundreds of chimps, and we have 16 right now. So we really specialize in kind of the individualized care, and because we're in Washington State, it's really beautiful here, but we do have 4 seasons, and which is nice in a way because that allows them to kind of experience different things. They actually really like to eat snow. They're not able to, fully explore the outdoor habitat when there's a lot of snow, but otherwise they like it. But our first group of 7 came in 2008, and they were used in hepatitis vaccine testing and had spent decades in laboratories and different laboratories. So they were owned by a facility that would kind of lease them out to different labs to be used. We don't really know the full extent of how they were used because some of that is just proprietary information that we never were privy to. We do know that one of the chimps, Negra, spent about 18 months in isolation, which is really unfortunate. And she has post-traumatic stress disorder, which she's overcome to a pretty great degree since she's been here. They've been here for 15 years almost. We're celebrating our 15th year with them. And they're all doing well, even though they're into their 40s now, that whole group of 7, 40 or above. So yeah, their initial histories too. Burrito was a pet when he was young, and then he was shipped to a trainer and then used in biomedical research. And that was pretty common, like in the 70s and 80s. A lot of chimps even went from zoos to biomedical research, but particularly private ownership, because it was kind of cool in the 60s and 70s to own a chimp, but usually it would last about 4 or 5 years, and then the chimp would get stronger than any of their owners and cause havoc and become potentially really dangerous. So the private owners were just looking for ways to kind of offload their chimps, and they would, most zoos weren't buying chimps, so they would give them or sell them to research facilities. So, sorry, my cat. Let me just grab my cat really quick.
No worries.
She's our little office cat. She's 23.
Oh.
Yeah, and then our newer group. So they came in 2 groups, but they came from a facility in California that was a sanctuary of sorts, but was never accredited and had been around for a really long time, and hadn't really updated their facility, and they had some financial problems. So they closed down, and there were over 400 animals on their property. It was in California, and they needed to rehome all of them. And there were 42 chimps there, which is a really large number for the sanctuary community to absorb. But I'm really happy to say that we worked hard to not only bring 9 into our sanctuary, but also help the others get to other accredited facilities. So they're all in good places now. But they, all of the 9 who came here from that facility, which was called Wildlife Way Station, had started their lives in a research laboratory as well. And they were rescued when they were about 6 years old, around there. So they weren't, some of them actually were put into research even at a really young age, but most of them had not been kind of put into the research protocol system at the laboratory.
Wow. I'm really happy to hear that they have found a good home with you guys. It seems like a terrible situation to be in. I mean, I honestly, I cannot even think about how hard it must be for an animal to be kept in conditions that cause this kind of trauma. I mean, and even, well, you know better than I do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to just say our position really is, especially, like, I feel this way even more strongly the more I get to know chimps, is they really don't belong in captivity at all. Even the best captive situation is not able to provide for everything that they have been evolved to experience in life. They live in huge social groups in the wild. They get to travel for miles and miles every day, and it's just impossible to mimic that in a captive situation.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking here that besides the work as a sanctuary, I feel like there is a bit of like maybe public education, a process of educating people about the importance of, maybe fighting for better rights in ethics for animals that are used in biomedics and science. And I know that you're not open to public visitations, but you do have incredible blog. Let's talk about it. And you mentioned it, right? You mentioned it when you said about Valentine's Day. So how does this blog work?
Yeah, so we have had a daily blog. It wasn't daily in the very beginning, but since 2008, we started the blog when blogs were like the newest thing. And it really helped a lot because we were able to get kind of loyal followers even before the first group of chimps arrived, and some of them have been following them since then, which is really amazing. And we've had it, we posted daily for many years now, and I, like, personally, just on a personal level, even if there was no public out there, I love the blog because I can look back and I can look at the transformations of the chimps over the years. And all of our caregivers here contribute to it. So there's different voices. Some people like to make up rhymes or terrible puns. And you know, that people get to see all the celebrations that the chimps have, and like they really get to know them on an individual personal level and kind of relate to their different personalities. So it's really a labor of love for us. It does take a lot of work, but we've kind of built it into our daily schedule. So the caregivers who are posting for the day have a choice of, you know, they can, you know, be really elaborate and, you know, have these heartfelt, you know, emotional stories, or they can just grab a couple photos and post for the day. So it's really varied and interesting, I think, for everyone.
Oh, that's nice. I agree with you. It's quite interesting. I checked some of the posts, and the ones about birthdays and celebrations are always fun.
Yeah, it's always nice to see the chimps having a good time.
Absolutely. And for everybody listening to us now, you can check their blog at their website, which is chimpsnw.org.org. You're going to get a link on the description of this episode and on our article on our website. And you can have much more information in there, get to know people behind it, people that are working in the staff, and especially how we can help them keep going. And I think this is a crucial thing. I'm going to split this question on two, because one thing that I wondered is how much help you might need from volunteers, maybe, to keep these daily activities going, because it's not just, you know, working close to the chimps, as you mentioned, but also like really behind the scenes, even more behind the scenes tasks, right? What are the opportunities for volunteering do you have in there?
Yeah, we've had to change our kind of on-site volunteer program quite a bit because of the pandemic. So that was really pretty rough. We have interns who come from the program at Central Washington University because we're just 20 minutes away from that university. And that's been really rewarding because students who are interested in primatology can get some hands-on experience. And by hands-on, I mean like scrubbing and just being around, you know, in the building with the chimps and watching us serve and things like that. And we have volunteer days where people can come out and help us construct things. We're finishing up an outdoor area for the newer group right now. Super excited to see them go outside for the first time. Have no idea how they're going to react to it. So, and then at a distance, I'm always looking for people who have like professional expertise in various things. So my job here is fundraising, and I kind of oversee the outreach and communications, and we have other staff that work on those things too. And, you know, technology changes so quickly. I'm always interested in, you know, the latest things that nonprofits are doing to get the word out. And we have a board that not everyone is local, but that's kind of higher level, like looking at our strategic planning and thinking about the future. And so that's an amazing volunteer job that I don't even know why people choose to do that, but it's great that we have a really good board. Trying to think of other things. We have tabling events. So we're about an hour and a half from Seattle. And we're hoping to get out there more now that the pandemic has subsided a little bit.
Well, this is awesome. Maybe I can actually help you guys out and see how can I can fit in something maybe. And besides that, there are other ways to help you keep going, right? What is the best one, would you say now?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any nonprofit, and especially with sanctuaries, maybe, although that's my bias, it's just donations. You know, we've taken on such a gigantic responsibility. Chimps can live to, you know, the median life expectancy is mid-30s. So all of our chimps are kind of in the elderly to even geriatric kind of ages, although you would never know looking at them. But they can live into their 60s. So it's a really long-term commitment that we've made, and we want to be able to provide that for other animals going forward. We also have cattle that are here. We have 4 cows. Well, 3 cows and a steer. And we love all animals, obviously. And we want to, in the future, be able to make a home for more chimps and then more primates, so smaller primates that are kind of better acclimated to our climate here. So with chimps, just really briefly, there are no chimps that are being actively used in biomedical research in the US anyway, and in most countries. But there are over 100,000 monkeys that are still being used. So there's just a huge need for sanctuaries and advocacy for them. And all of that takes a lot of money. Chimps are super expensive to care for properly. And yeah, so donating is the way to go.
Yeah, people, please do get in touch with them. It's easy, again, as I said, through their website. You can easily find ways to get involved with this and help the sanctuary keep going. Thank you so much, Diana, for joining us today. This was a wonderful talk.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the invite.
It was my pleasure. And for everybody listening, also, thank you so much. And remember, if you enjoyed the episode, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that shows the algorithm that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of the Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest. Bye, and I'll see you at the next episode.